Hi, my name is Kaitlyn Goslinga, and I am the Assistant Director of Financial Aid here at the University of the Pacific. This video is going to discuss the financial aid appeals process and circumstances that our office can regularly take into consideration to review your financial aid award. Topics we're going to go over include changes to family income, unusual expenses that your family may have incurred, and the dependency override process. To start, we can regularly look at reductions in family income. Perhaps your family has experienced a job loss, maybe a complete loss of employment, or even a partial loss of employment, reduction in hours, or a transition to a newer, low-paying job. This loss does have to be involuntary, and it must have occurred at least 4 weeks before the appeal can be submitted to our office for review. Here are examples of some of the documentation that may be required. To start, we will need a written statement that is signed and dated that includes details surrounding the dates and the income adjustments. If someone in your family has lost their job, we would need to see documentation of that. So perhaps a letter of termination, a layoff notice, or a furlough notice. We may ask for a final pay stub, and if you are not transitioning to a new role, we may ask for confirmation of unemployment benefits. Also, you may be required to submit an IRS tax return transcript or W-2s for a given tax year. Here are also examples of unusual expenses that we can take into account. Involuntary expenses, so consumer purchases would not be included. An example of this would be an expense to perhaps make your home accessible for a disabled family member. Also, if you have had unreimbursed medical expenses, so anything you have had to pay out of pocket that insurance did not cover, typically if it exceeds about 2% of your adjusted gross income, that is something we can take a look at. Also, if you have younger students or siblings in your household that are attending private high school and you are paying for that tuition, that is something we can consider as well. Keep in mind that these expenses must have been paid for already and they are not able to be future expenses. Documentation requirements would be a written statement from you as the family and also receipts of those costs that you have paid for. Lastly, I want to discuss the dependency override process. This would apply to dependent students who regularly would need to include parent information on the FAFSA, but perhaps are unable to for a variety of reasons. These circumstances could be perhaps your parents are abusive or they're absent and they're not able to function in their capacity as a parent. Could be due to physical or emotional abuse, alcohol or drug abuse, incarceration, or perhaps absence due to emotional or financial instability. If one of these circumstances apply to you, we want to hear from you. Documentation requirements for this process would include a written statement attesting to what has been going on, and also 2 additional third-party statements. So for example, these statements could come from a high school guidance counselor, perhaps a social worker or a member of the clergy, law enforcement, or a mental health professional or a doctor. At least one of these statements does need to be from a non-family member. If you have additional questions or want to review these processes more in detail or discuss your unique situation, please do not hesitate to reach out to our office. We are happy to walk you through these steps.